Okay, my name is Nancy McCaffrey. I am interviewing Joseph DeAndrea for the Library of Congress History Project. Today is January 3rd, 2019, and we are at the Sunrise Nursing Home in Setauket. Hi, how are you? Good?
Great.
Okay, so let's start with some biographical information. When and where were you born?
Bronx, New York,
And what day and year?
November 12th, 1923,
Okay. So that makes you, how old will you be this year?
95.
Wow, that's great. And who were your parents?
My parents,
Your parents, what were their names?
Mary and James DeAndrea.
And what did they do for a living?
My mother was a dress designer, and my father was an automobile dealer.
Okay, and that was all in the Bronx?
Manhattan.
Oh, Manhattan. Okay. Did you have any siblings?
I had 4,
And what were their names?
Joseph, Mary, Thomas, and Richard.
Okay.
3 of them passed away.
All right. And were any in the military as well?
No,
No, you were the only one? Oh, okay. And before entering the service, how old were you when you went into the service?
23.
23. So what did you do before then?
I worked for Sperry Gyroscope.
A gyroscope?
Sperry.
Okay.
S-P-E-R-R-Y.
And what did you do there?
I was I built anti-aircraft directors,
Oh, okay.
assembled anti-aircraft directors.
Okay, so were you on like a factory line? Or,
No, a technical assembly line.
okay. And how long were you there?
2 years. And then I went into the Wall Street
As what? What did you do on Wall Street?
as stockbroker.
Oh, really? How did you like that?
Made a lot of money for people.
Just for people, not for yourself?
Not too much.
Okay. So how did you get into the military? How did they find you?
Well, I went to be enlisted in the Air Force, but my blood pressure was high. So they gave me a medicine to lower my blood pressure because I wanted to enlist.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went home, my mother said you were drafted.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you couldn't go into the Air Force at that time? You
No,
didn't
I was drafted.
So you had to go into
I
the
wanted
Army?
to enlist in the Air Force.
Oh, that's too bad.
I wanted to enlist as a mechanic in the Air Force.
So you went into the Army.
Yeah, they put me in the Army in a replacement depot.
Now, what does that mean?
That means I would take the place of anybody that got injured or killed.
Oh, so it didn't matter where it was? You went from one place to another? Is that how it
Well,
worked?
I went to North Africa, and from there they placed me in a technical supervision regiment where I did instrument repair. But then I was taken out of that and put in the infantry.
Okay. So we'll get to that later. That's a big deal. So you didn't choose your branch.
What's that?
So what happened? Do you remember the day before, the day you had to go to training camp? What was that like?
Basic training was at Fort Dix, New Jersey,
Okay.
and technical training was at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland.
So what was basic like? What was that?
Basic is every soldier knows. That's firing weapons, infiltration, crawling under barbed wire as they fire bullets at
Okay, and how long did that last?
Basic training was about 5 weeks. Then I went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds.
Okay, so what were your instructors like at basic training?
Tough.
Yeah? Any of them stay in your mind at all?
What's that?
Do you recall any of them specifically? Did they
No,
make an
they-
impression on
They
you?
were very firm, and we were young and brave and stupid all at the same time.
Okay. All right. And how were the living conditions there?
The living conditions weren't bad. We lived in barracks.
And the food?
Food was adequate.
Yeah. Okay. When you were in basic training, how did you get along with the other soldiers?
Fine. You had to. It wasn't a question of who you liked and didn't like. You had to be very,
Congenial.
yeah.
Yeah, got along with everyone. Okay, good. And did you have any R&R time when you were in basic?
But it was an Aberdeen Proving Ground. I was able to get home every other weekend
Oh,
to see
okay.
my parents.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Okay. So you finished basic. You went into Maryland, and this would be your specialized training then,
Yes.
correct? So what was your specialized training in?
Instrument repair.
Instrument repair?
Yeah,
Okay.
range finders, height finders, binoculars, all that stuff.
Wow. And how long did that last?
A few months.
Now, did you have to take a test in order to qualify for this?
No, I was quite qualified because I did the same thing in Ferry
Oh,
as an
okay.
employee.
So you were happy with the choice that you had?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when you went to the specialized training camp, how did that differ from the
Basic.
boot kick? Yeah, the boot camp.
Oh, it was what I liked. But we were always waiting to see what they were going to do with us.
Meaning what?
Meaning, one day they came and said, get on these Baltimore and Ohio railroad trains with blackened windows. You couldn't see out, nobody
Really?
could see in.
Wow.
And we were shipped to Norfolk, Virginia, and we were in a covered gangway. No one could see out in, and we couldn't see out. And we loaded on a troop ship.
Why was there so much secrecy for that
Plus, there were a lot of spies there.
in Virginia? Really? I never heard of that.
A lot
Spy-
of
German
a lot of
spies?
Nazi spies,
Really?
sympathizers.
Oh, I didn't know that. So you were loaded onto the ship in,
And we were given a pamphlet,
and what was that about?
The Habits and Customs of the British People,
Oh, okay.
which is also a ploy
Meaning,
because we thought we were going to England and we wound up in North Africa.
wow, what was that trip like? How did you get from Virginia to North Africa?
By troop ship.
You took a ship all the way
A
to North
troop
Africa?
ship. There were 13 troop ships together. And we went north and south and east and west and turned around
How long did it take you to get to North Africa?
about 15 days on the ship. Most troops were seasick.
How about you? Did you get seasick?
Yeah, everybody was seasick. We lived on saltines.
That must have been a hard trip.
Well, the ships were small and the ocean was rough. And all of a sudden one day, instead of seeing England, we saw the Straits of Gibraltar.
So you didn't even know while you were on the ship where you were headed?
No, they didn't want the enemy to know where we were going either.
Okay.
So we wound up in Mirs El Kabir in Tunisia in North Africa.
And where were you housed? Where did you have barracks there, or how did that
No
work?
barracks. We were in tents, pyramidal tents, eight men to a tent, and we traveled by truck
Traveled by truck to where?
wherever they sent us, in, out, over, and then we boarded a troop ship to Italy.
Okay, so while you were in Africa, how long were you in Africa for?
A few months.
So what were your duties while you were
Well, I
in
was an instrument repairman.
Even
at
there?
that time, yeah.
Yeah, so what kind of instruments did you repair in Africa?
Well, you know, height finders and range finders and that sort of thing.
So if they were broken, they sent them to you, is that?
Well, that was the idea.
But was, didn't work out that way?
Well, the war was really on the French-German border while we were down there. Then we boarded a ship from Italy to France, southern France, Marseille. And there were no docks in Marseille. So we had to go over the side of the ship on cargo nets. We climbed down cargo nets.
Into what, rowboats or something?
No, onto the dock.
Oh, onto the dock.
Remember, we had helmet, bandolier, ammunition belt, backpack with blankets, canteen cup, gas mask, and we climbed down these very carefully so you didn't step on the person below you.
Right. Okay. So when you were in Italy, was that just like a stopover, or did you stay in Italy for a while?
They, again, I was in a replacement depot, so they were meandering as to where we would go. The war was getting very complicated, so they decided they didn't need us in Italy, they wanted us in France.
Okay. So how long did you stay in France?
I really don't recall the exact time, but at that point, I was still in a replacement depot. And then when we got to about Dijon, France, they put me in the 75th Infantry Division.
Okay. So how did you feel about that when you realized that you were being put into the infantry? How did you feel?
We were young, didn't bother us at all.
You felt you were equipped?
We were a little anxious because we didn't know what's next. And then one day they offered us, those of us that had a high school education at least, a battlefield commission to become a lieutenant. And I didn't go. I wanted to stay with my buddies.
Oh. Did you regret that, or you blitzed?
I didn't reject it.
So you were in the infantry in France, right? So did you fight any battles there? Were you,
Battlefield commission, it's called.
but when you were in France and in the infantry, did you see combat? You know,
Not really.
no.
We sure heard the guns go off though.
Wow.
The artillery. We were close.
So if you weren't in the battle, what were you doing in France while you were there?
We were, as we said, hurry up and wait. And we traveled mostly by freight train. 50 men on straw on the bed of a freight train.
And how long were those trips?
They were all over the place. Half the time we didn't know where we were going.
So why did they keep moving you all over if you weren't
Well,
really?
the battles, the war was a very fluid situation at that time. We had no idea where we were going. One interesting thing, we noticed that all the railroad gates were always down
And why is that?
because the trains never stopped.
Oh, wow.
If a car came up to that gate, there was a little old lady came out and raised the semaphore, let the car through. But the freight train, the troop trains were going up and down and in and out. Half the time we didn't know where we were. We're dealing with World War I maps.
Well, that's not good. That wasn't much of a help, I guess, right? So when you were in France, you were still in tents, no matter where you went, you stayed in tents?
Tents and sometimes bombed out buildings.
And what did you have to eat? Just rations or?
No, well, they managed to feed us pretty good. A couple of times at one time we slept on the ground in the winter, on the frozen ground.
Wow. How long did that last?
One day,
One day.
only one day. And then we never were sure, the troops themselves, we never were sure where we were going or where we were.
Wow. So did you make a lot of friendships during that time when you were traveling?
Yeah, well, I remember a few people. We had one fellow, his name was Stanley, but they call him beaucoup, which in French means much. What he did was collect coins every place he went, and he had pockets full of coins. And one day, shrapnel went off, and the coins were all blasted in his leg.
Oh, wow.
Saved him.
Really? Holy cow.
He had African coins, French coins, Italian lira.
How could he even move around with all that, all those coins in his pocket? Wow. So that saved him from dying? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and at one time, we were guarding Italian. At that point, Italy, the Italians always wanted to be on the American side, so they were called interns in the prisoners of war. But I know they shipped some German prisoners were shipped here, someplace on the East Coast,
Really? Wow.
North Carolina.
Okay. So you went from France to Italy, and Italy,
From Italy to France, to Luxembourg, to Holland, to Belgium, back to France, then to Germany.
okay, so all through those travels, you were in the infantry, but you really weren't fighting.
No, not really.
Okay, so how was it traveling to all those different places?
I don't know. We were once standing on a pile of bricks and mortar in Holland. And as best we can determine, it was the remains of an apartment building. So there must have been bodies under there.
Yeah.
I never saw such. All through France and Italy, all you saw was shells of buildings, no floors, everything. One time I can't remember where it was, we slept in a bombed out convent. And of course in Germany, you weren't allowed to fraternize. You could not talk to any natives, people.
Right.
And if you did, you were fined.
Fine?
Fined $25.
But in the other countries, you were allowed to talk to the natives?
Yeah,
And how were they to you? Were they fine?
they were fined.
They were happy you were there, I guess?
Yes. I remember once Paris, I wasn't near this, but I know of it. Americans were closing in on Paris to liberate it from the Wehrmacht, the German army,
Mm-hmm.
and they were stopped. And the French army was allowed to go into Paris.
Like they were liberating it?
Well, you know, they were natives.
So they kept the Americans back from going in?
Well, I'm not privy to what they did, but I know that French were there. When we were in, when we entered the Straits of Gibraltar, we saw a ship, a battleship. It certainly didn't look like an American ship. And it certainly didn't look like a British ship. We couldn't tell what it was. It was the battleship Lorraine, which is a French battleship. But you remember at that time they were Vichy French.
Which are what? What does that mean?
They were friendly to the Nazis.
Oh, okay. Right.
So you never know, never quite knew what. Actually, we read about all this when we came back.
It's probably a good thing you didn't know it all when you were there, right? So what happened when you went to Germany? What did you do there?
Germany, we entered a city called Iserlohn and then Cologne. And guarded some German prisoners. The one thing I didn't like is when we were on the way back to come home, some young man over in another company who had been seeing a lot of battles was struck by lightning and killed.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was a terrible thing. Let me put it very bluntly. We weren't afraid of anything at that time.
Really?
But now I have post-traumatic stress from thinking about it.
Okay.
But the GI Bill was great. It allowed me to go to college.
Okay, so when were you actually out, when did you leave to come home? Do you remember that day?
I don't know. It was in 1946.
Okay, so you came home again by ship?
By ship to Staten Island,
Okay.
and then ferry. And I think they gave us $2.20, which was plenty of money because we took the ferry, I think that was 15 cents. And then we took the subway to Grand Central. The subway then was a nickel.
Okay.
And then my parents were there in Grand Central.
That's
I
nice.
saw my mother and father and sister and brother.
So they were glad to have you home, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were glad to be
And I
home.
was thin and strong and tall.
That's great. Okay. So then you decided not to stay in the Army, correct?
No. I always wanted to be a mechanic in the Air Force. So I got out of the Army.
Okay. And then you came home and you went back to school on the GI Bill?
I went to Fordham University,
Okay, and what did you study?
management, business management, and marketing,
Okay.
and a lot of accounting and taxes
Okay.
studies.
And when you graduated, what kind of a job did you get?
I went back to a company called Reeves Instrument, which made products for the service. And one day I met a friend and he said, you have to get out of this. You have to get a real career. And I went training as a stockbroker.
Oh, okay, so you went back to stockbroking. Okay, because you were a stockbroker before the war?
No, no.
Oh, no, that was after the war. Okay. So how long did you stay on Wall Street?
35 years.
Long time. You okay?
Yeah.
35 years, and you retired from that?
Yes, but then I'm not the retiring type. I had to keep my hand in everything. I became a certified professional behavioral analyst.
And what do they do?
Specialize in communication skills.
Is this sort of like a psychologist, or?
No, it was communication skills, how to ask adroit questions, to get answers, to move from there. It's applicable to almost any profession, whether you're a personnel director or a salesperson or a marketing person. I did that for a while.
Now, did you have your own company, or did you work for someone?
No, I was self-employed. And then I missed the brokerage business, so I became a wholesaler where well, it's kind of hard to explain. When a municipal bond issue is issued, I went to get other sponsors. So I visited other companies, other competitive companies to take part of the underwriting.
Okay.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, it sounds. Now, did you marry once you got home and had a family?
Yeah,
or-
I got married and I married my first wife who is deceased now. And had 4 children, 3 of whom are deceased. And then I remarried a lady who was a widow in my neighborhood in Long Island. And she's here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, did you readjust to civilian life after the war pretty well?
And what?
When you got out of the Army, did you readjust to civilian life easily?
Pretty well, yeah.
No problems? Okay. Did you ever remain in contact with any of the other soldiers you met?
No, most of them were from Indiana and Massachusetts. I kept in touch with one, but I kept in touch with a lot of my colleagues, friends that were in the business world.
Okay. Did you join any veterans organizations?
I still belong to the American Legion.
Okay. So, looking back on your military experiences, how did that affect your life?
It really was it was okay. You know, it wasn't bad, it wasn't good. It was just an experience, and it really helped direct me into the direction of a career.
That's good. So it gave you some
I
kind of,
didn't want to stay in the manufacturing as a worker
right,
in an instrument plant until I met my friend who got me into brokerage.
okay. That's good, okay. So did you learn any life lessons in the military?
Be careful.
Okay. And how did your experiences in the war impact your feelings about the military in general?
Well, I was proud of the military. I was proud of my colleagues. I found that, well, the military is necessary, and I have every bit of respect for them.
Do you have any kind of message for future generations? About, yeah,
Don't run away.
meaning?
Meaning, if there's ever a draft again,
Oh,
don't go to Canada.
okay.
Stay.
So is there anything else you want to discuss that we haven't spoken about?
Well, I think I later found that many of the present-day heroes in the military are females. I know a woman that, her name is Rebecca, and she was in the Coast Guard, and she would drop down from airplanes to rescue people in the water. I know another lady that was in my American Legion post who operated a helicopter gunship. And I know my wife's granddaughter just retired from the Air Force as a major, and she was responsible for tracking satellites.
Tracking satellites. Oh, interesting. So you have a lot of respect for the women who are in the military.
Oh, indeed.
Okay. So is there anything else you want to add?
No, the only sorrow I have in my life is my 3 children that died.
Okay. Yeah, that's sad. Do you have grandchildren?
No,
No?
my wife does. My new wife.
So I guess we covered everything then. What do you think?
I think we covered everything.
Okay. Thank you very much for interviewing with me, and thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you.